Kevin Khan here for Seconds Out with the patiently waiting Frank Smith. Frank, much appreciated. Embodying the spirit of Halloween, you've come dressed as civilian number 134,000. Halloween fan, maybe?
What's that?
I completely made it up. Just saying.
Don't know what you're talking about, mate. Honestly, where have you come up with that from?
I think the analogy I was going to go with, and I was going to segue into, I guess, maybe appearing at Queensberry weigh-ins or Queensberry shows in general might have been a bit of expect more of a trick as opposed to a treat. But it's a bit of a treat now these days, coming to different shows and offering the hands of friendship now that everything's all smoothed over with the promotional relationships.
Yeah, we're all friends now. We're all friends. Everything's good. Look, this is an event and a fight where it just shows how positive the relationship is and how good it is for the sport, where we can make fights like this across both of our shows, and it's only going to benefit everyone involved in the sport because we're seeing great fights.
Any kind of small regrets in not picking up Liam Davis? I remember during the COVID period, it was winner stays on, and Liam every now and again brings that up, and he didn't quite get to stay on, even though he did win, and he's just gone from strength to strength, kind of gone that traditional route, and now he goes up against one of your fighters here in Shabazz in a real good fight. But any kind of regrets, maybe not picking up Liam?
Look, boxing's a crazy sport and a crazy business where regret is maybe the wrong word. There's so many fighters that we've worked with over the years that you think, oh, if we would have done this, or if we would have... Chris Billam-Smith's a perfect example, who I was just speaking about a minute ago. He's an example of someone who we could have carried on with, and I think we were just at different parts and different stages, and see what he's gone on to go and do is amazing. So it's just one of those sports. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what's around the corner. But this is a great fight tomorrow night. I'm excited for it. I believe Shabazz Massoud's going to do the job, but Liam Davis is a big puncher, and that's what Shabazz has got to watch out for. But it's a great fight, great main event.
With Inoue holding all the belts, what's the likelihood of either fighter, but more so Shabazz, getting a world title shot next?
Look, I think Inoue there's talk about maybe in time moving up, and those belts could free up. He's obviously fighting Sam Goodman, I think, on 24th of December. Our guy, MJ Akhmadaliev, is fighting, is headlining the Monaco show for the WBA interim title. If Inoue or Goodman, whoever wins, likely Inoue, doesn't fight Akhmadaliev next, they'll have to vacate that belt. So anything can happen. There's a great fight as well in the same division between Peter McGraw and Dennis McCann on December 21st. Another Matchroom v Queensberry fight. There's a lot of exciting fights to be made, and I think the winner will be close to a world title fight, because in 2025 at some point I do think Inoue would free up those belts, or be pushed to free up those belts by the various mandatories at least.
Any and all subsequent cross-promotional fights, particularly between yourselves and Queensberry, are being dubbed as an appetizer towards a second iteration of Matchroom versus Queensberry. What's the likelihood, and any talk surrounding those set of fights being made at all?
Look, I think we'll see another 5v5 when it is. I can't say right now, but I do believe we'll see another one of those. There's so many great fights to be made. Like I say, we've got this. You've got Peter McGraw, Dennis McCann just on December 21st. All of these fights are brilliant fights for the sport. What those fights are, though, let's wait and see. But we'll definitely see another 5v5 in time.
Speaking of fights to be made, in the immediacy of Jack Catterall's win over Regis Prograis, Eddie Hearn said, look, I'd love to see Teofimo Lopez come over here to Manchester. Maybe we can draw him out. He said he might have to exit the ring before the final bell rung there. But what next for Jack Catterall? Yeah,
look, I think Teofimo's probably a bit lost at the minute when you look at it. He's got his ongoing matters with Top Rank. There's talk about maybe does he look to go to 147. So is that the fight next? Maybe not. But it would be a great fight to bring into Manchester. It would be a massive night to bring into Manchester. The Co-op was a special atmosphere in there last weekend. We want to deliver a big fight for Jack Catterall. He deserves it. He deserves a world title shot. He should have become undisputed many years back, I believe. So let's see. But there's big fights to be made. You've got Liam Power against Richardson Hitchens, obviously, in Puerto Rico on December 7th. The winner of that, we promote both of those guys. That's a potential fight as well. So our aim now is to deliver that world title shot for Jack Catterall.
What got moved into the chief support fixture was Campbell Hatton versus Jimmy Joe Flint in the rematch between the two. Campbell couldn't overturn the defeat into a victory, and Eddie kind of made mention that maybe we might take him away from that big spotlight, and maybe some smaller kind of shows might suit best for him. Is that the same feeling from yourself in terms of managing and guiding his career?
Yeah, I think so. And look, at the same time, you have to remember Campbell's been sort of thrust into this position because of his name. And there's no sort of harm in losing. And, there's so much pressure on fighters now that they shouldn't lose. It was a great fight the first time round. It was a great fight the second time round. He jumped straight back in the ring against him, where many people would have said, "Oh, let me go and have a warm up. Let me go and have a," But I think if he wants to carry on now, that is the way to do it, to take some of that pressure off him, because every time he fights, because of who his father is, he's under pressure. So I think we'll see what he decides to do next.
How serious do you think the conversation is or should be as to Campbell if he wants to continue? Do you think this is a real point in his career where he has to kind of assess whether this is for him?
I think, yeah, but I think it's also about the structure, the way he does it, and on what basis, because he's never going to develop and grow now if he's if he's going straight back into those tough fights on TV every time, because that's what we need to do. We need people to be in good fights, entertaining fights, to go on TV, to build the sport. But if he wants to carry on with the sport and wants to keep developing and evolving, then he'll probably have to take another route with that.
In terms of, if you hypothetically to ever get another child of a fighter coming through within your ranks, would you, from how you've guided Benn and from how you've guided Hatton, would you change the pace in which you'd maybe make these fighters go at?
I think we did a good job with Campbell Hatton on the pace we took him through, but then it gets to the point after he's had a number of fights. And I think Conor, Benn as well, they're all different. Every fighter's a different individual. When you look back at Conor Benn in the early days, and then you said if you would have said where he was now and the fights he'd gone into, and what he's done, I think people would have said no chance. But these guys are turning over young age, so everyone's different, and there's a different way of managing all of their careers.
Glad you mentioned pressure, and when it comes to pressure and spotlight for fighters, and the more so bigger amount when it comes to Anthony Joshua and the heavyweight division in general, it seems to be the signals. It's being spoke about the rematch between Dubois and Joshua not happening, and a different route being gone down. What can you tell us about that and the potential of the rematch?
I think the key piece is Anthony Joshua being ready, and I think for a fight in February he wouldn't be ready to get back in camp and fight in February. That's the focus. Obviously, Daniel Dubois has got to do his own thing. He's got to get on with his own career, which will mean likely defending against someone else. But this is the biggest fight of AJ's career, so he has to go into any fight he goes into now completely 100% ready to go, with no injuries, no niggles, nothing. And he wouldn't be ready to go back into training camp just yet.
Knowing the fighter that AJ is that a bit of a bitter pill for him to swallow, not being ready for that fight?
Yeah, but like I say, if he went into a fight and he wasn't ready and made excuses, this is a man that's never made excuses in his life for any loss or any tough part of his career. So he wants to, at this point of his career and where he's at and his age, he needs to make sure that he's 100%, because it's the biggest part of his career. Dubois will do his thing. There's the Tyson Fury fight, regardless of a result against Alexander Usyk. I believe that's a fight we will see. It's all about making the right decisions.
What can you say as to the injury that Anthony Joshua is suffering that puts him out of that fight?
Not for me to talk about. It's a private matter, but one for someone else. But it's for Anthony Joshua. Unfortunately, not for you.
Fair enough. In terms of the date then that he would be ready for, would he look to take an interim fight if it's Fury he's looking at? Would there be an interim date there?
I don't think at the stage of his career he's at, it's the right thing. I think it's either Dubois, Fury, Usyk, these types of fights are the fights he wants to go. We've had the rebuild phase with him where he's come back through, he's looked great. He lost against the better man on the night against Daniel Dubois. It was a terrific performance by Daniel Dubois. So I think an interim fight isn't really the right option. If that means waiting an extra month or so, then it is what it is.
It's interesting because the usual boxing arithmetic would be off of the back of a knockout like that, you'd probably have that confidence building fight to get you back into what would be a huge fight against Tyson Fury. Is it just because of this season, Riyadh season, the lay of the land, that the big fights are there now, you got to take them? Yeah,
but I also think, look at what he did after Andy Ruiz after getting knocked out. He went straight back in there against Andy Ruiz, won over 12 rounds against him. So he's been there, he's been through it, he's recovered, he's come back, he's from these losses. So it's not quite the same as maybe it was the first time round, but he went straight back into the first time round. He didn't shy away, didn't have comeback fights. Look, Usyk, he went straight back in there for the second Usyk fight, and I think put in a better performance the second time round. So there's no set way of doing things, but I think right now where he's at the stage of his career, every camp's tough. It just is. Once you get a little bit older, every camp is tough on your body. Especially when you train the way these guys train. And I think it's about going just straight into the right fight and the biggest fight?
Absolutely, it would be a huge fight between Fury and AJ if that was to materialize. But if Fury was to beat Alexander Usyk, would it not be the winner of Dubois and whoever the opponent is, the one that would truly be deserving of that opportunity, even though we've wanted the AJ fight for so long for Fury?
Deserving is one word. Like, this is the biggest fight in the sport, I believe. So it's like, we want to see the biggest fights. So, unfortunately, deserving doesn't always come into it in the sport. And also, what is deserving, right? You've given 11 years of your career and the biggest nights for the sport in Anthony Joshua. He lost against the better man on the night. Heavyweight boxing, anything can happen. But it doesn't mean that you then lose other opportunities. He is still the biggest name, or up there for all of these guys to fight. And that's the reality of the business we're in.
When it comes to Dubois, he's now got kind of the green light to go ahead and take a voluntary against one in the IBF rankings. I think from a Matchroom perspective, it's only Justice Hooney, but he's tied up at the moment. But what do you think of the likelihood of the the person in the opposite corner to Dubois? Sorry,
I don't know. Justice Hooney, like you say, is fighting in December. Probably that wouldn't be the right fight anyway. In reality, even if he was there, I don't know. We'll see. Riyadh season want to see the biggest possible fights. I guess Dubois would fight on a Riyadh season card. So we'll see how things play out.
Moving on to, I just want to get an update as to what was the situation regarding the Matchroom Japanese tournament, and what can you tell us about the lay of the land on that?
Yeah, look, it's an ongoing legal matter there. Have to be, can't say too much, unfortunately. It doesn't look like the semi-finals are going to happen, but one of those things. And hopefully we can have some news soon.
Elsewhere in the news, Eubank Jr. was looking for a fight with Canelo Alvarez, I think rewind maybe 6 months ago, and it was close. And then Edgar Berlanga came in and got the fight. Now, there was apparently small talks or small conversations that was going to happen.
Obviously very small talks, because Eddie Reynoso didn't even know about them, so it must have been tiny talks.
Well, it's been shut down completely. He said it'll be anyone but Eubank, to paraphrase Eddie Reynoso. What do you think about that and the apparent conversations that were there?
It's little slithering Ben Shalom lying again, isn't it? About things. Look, I don't think Canelo, regardless, is the right fight for Chris Eubank Jr., honestly speaking. In terms of, I think he needs to show in a real, like, you can't go from fighting his last fight straight into a Canelo. Canelo is a different animal. He's a different beast. I'm not saying, by the way, that Chris is tough. I know, like, I've seen many of his fights. Chris is a tough man. But Canelo's on another level. And you can't go from the fight he had in Riyadh and go in and fight Canelo Alvarez, in my opinion. But I don't think that's going to happen anyway, according to Eddie Reynoso ever, so it's kind of irrelevant now. It's all part of the games as well. I think the biggest fight out there, the fight that makes the most sense, is Conor Benn. And the two of them, this isn't a fight where one brings more to the table than the other. Chris Eubank Jr. needs Conor Benn the same. Do you know what I mean? It's not like this is a 50-50 fight. It's a massive fight, and I believe it's the fight to make. It's just whether everyone will be sensible when it comes to making it. But he hasn't got tons of options. Like, who does Chris Eubank go and fight? Canelo is out the window now, as they've stated. And they've sort of snooked themselves, and it's quite embarrassing because he's got a promoter who doesn't know what he's doing. Conor is the natural fight. He's not going to fight Janibek, and also Janibek's got the mandatory. Who else is there? You got Hamza Shiraz. He turned down. I think Liam Smith's an interesting fight. I actually believe that. I actually think Liam Smith could be an interesting fight again. It's a trilogy. It's 1-1. But I don't know. Let's see. I have said time and time again, and I'm not hiding away from it, I think Conor Benn is a massive fight. Hopefully we'll have news very soon on the situation there. And I think that's the fight to make for both of them.
Can you just tell us on that, regarding news with Ben? I keep hearing kind of it'll be 2 weeks, and it keeps getting pushed back further and further. Is there any tangible update as to what the situation is with Conor?
Nearly there. I know, but this is the thing. I've tried not to say dates because it's like, if you don't do it, and then you don't say it. But I feel like we're nearly there. And I've said nearly there for a while. I'm not going to lie, but nearly there in a 2-year window. If it's a month, if it's 6 weeks, whatever, I don't think we're far off now.
Lastly, I just wanted to sign off with, just in terms of your feelings on the state of shows in the UK, with a lot of kind of the introduction of Riyadh season, a lot of big fights and a lot of big the cards have been a lot better, and that has meant that kind of the headline cards up in the UK that would normally happen over here have moved to being supports to main events, to big events. Is the UK suffering a little bit in terms of quality when it comes to cards because of what's happening outside of the UK?
Look, I think it was a quiet July and August, being honest with you. And then September, we were supposed to have we were supposed to have Jack Catterall, Regis Prograis in August. It got delayed. You know, that's a tremendous main event, Jack Catterall, Regis Prograis. Sonny Edwards against Galleria Fire, tremendous main event. This is a tremendous main event here. You know, they've got a show on December 7th as well, the Magnificent Seven, a great show, Queensbury. I don't think UK boxing is being affected. I think we had a quiet few months, I'll be honest with you. But I think we all know what we need to do. I think we've seen that with the schedule and the fights that are coming up and we've just had. You know, so Riyadh season's been great for boxing and long may it continue. But we all know what we need to do. We need to keep delivering shows. You know, like I say again, great main event here. You know, Boxer aren't really doing much, really. They've done 7 shows, I think, in the whole year, so not really competition in anyone's eyes. And I think what we're doing is brilliant nights. I think Queensbury are doing great nights, and yeah, long may it continue.
Frank, I appreciate you fielding questions. Thanks for speaking to SecondsOut, sir.
Cheers, man. Thanks, mate.